My name is Colleen, 34 years old, and I never imagined I'd become the woman standing in a print shop at 2 in the morning watching 500 copies of my husband kissing my best friend roll off the machines. 15 years of marriage, two beautiful children, and a life I thought was built on trust, all captured in one devastating photograph. But sometimes the people closest to you hide the darkest secrets behind perfect smiles. Before I reveal how I expose them, let me know where you're watching from, and please like and subscribe if you believe in justice being served cold. I met Mark during my junior year at Boston University. He was studying business administration while I pursued my degree in communications. We bumped into each other quite literally at the campus coffee shop when he turned around too quickly with his latte and spilled it all over my new textbook. That clumsy moment turned into a 3-hour conversation that changed my life forever. He was charming, ambitious, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room when he talked to me. We dated for 2 years before he proposed on the same spot where we first met. The wedding was everything I had dreamed of, held at a beautiful vineyard in Napa Valley, with 150 of our closest friends and family. Lauren, my best friend since 7th grade, stood beside me as my maid of honor. She had helped me pick out the dress, planned my bachelorette party, and held my hand when I got nervous walking down the aisle. After graduation, Mark landed a position at a Fortune 500 company in Hartford, Connecticut. His career trajectory was impressive. Within 5 years, he went from junior analyst to senior manager, and by our 10th anniversary, he had become the director of marketing for the entire East Coast division. I was so proud of him. He worked hard, sometimes 60 or 70 hours a week, but he always said it was for our family's future. We bought a beautiful colonial house in West Hartford, one of those picture-perfect suburbs where kids ride bikes on tree-lined streets and neighbors actually know each other's names. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a backyard. Big enough for the swimming pool we installed when Emma turned 8. Emma, our first child, came along 3 years into our marriage. She has her father's dark hair and my green eyes, and from the moment she was born, she had Mark wrapped around her tiny finger. Tyler followed 2 years later, a bundle of energy who turned our organized life into beautiful chaos. Our life had a comfortable rhythm. Mark would leave for work by 7, always in one of his perfectly pressed suits, kissing me goodbye at the door with his coffee in hand. I had stepped back from my career in public relations when Emma was born, choosing to freelance part-time, so I could be there for school pickups, soccer practices, and piano recitals. Weekends were for family. Saturdays meant Tyler's baseball games and Emma's dance competitions. Sundays were our tradition of big breakfast spreads, with Mark making his famous blueberry pancakes, while the kids helped getting more flour on themselves than in the bowl. Every summer, we spent 2 weeks at Cape Cod, renting the same beach house year after year. The kids would build sandcastles, while Mark and I sat on the deck watching the sunset with glasses of wine, planning our future. We talked about college funds, retirement dreams, maybe buying that beach house someday when the kids were grown. Those conversations feel like a cruel joke now. Lauren had been part of our family story from the beginning. She was there when I first told someone about my crush on Mark. She helped me pick out my outfit for our first date. When Mark and I had our first big fight about his long hours at work, she was the one who helped me see both sides and encouraged me to communicate better. She became Emma's godmother without question, and she never missed a birthday party, school play, or holiday dinner at our house. Her own marriage to David had ended 2 years ago. The divorce was messy with accusations of emotional neglect on both sides. She showed up at my door one night, mascara running down her cheeks, holding a bottle of wine and her divorce papers. We stayed up until 4 in the morning talking about how relationships could fall apart even when you thought you were doing everything right. I held her while she cried, promised her that better days were coming, that the right person was out there waiting for her. The irony of those words haunts me now. After her divorce, Lauren threw herself into transformation. She started working out religiously, hired a personal trainer, and lost 20 pounds. She updated her wardrobe, trading her conservative style for form-fitting dresses and designer heels. She got highlights in her hair and started wearing makeup even for casual coffee dates. I was happy for her, thought she was reclaiming her confidence. Mark even commented once that she looked happier than she had in years. I smiled and agreed, proud of my friend for bouncing back. The three of us maintained our closeness, or so I thought. Lauren would come over for dinner at least twice a week. She and Mark would laugh about work stories while I cooked, since her office was only 2 blocks from his. Sometimes they grabbed lunch together when I was busy with the kids' activities. I loved that my husband and best friend got along so well. It made everything easier, more comfortable. What kind of wife suspects her husband is sleeping with her best friend when everything seems so normal, so perfect? Looking back now, there were signs. 3 months ago, Mark started working late more frequently. Not just an hour or two, but coming home past 11, sometimes midnight. He said there was a massive product launch that required extra attention, and with his promotion to vice president on the horizon, he couldn't afford to slack off. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? In 15 years, he had never given me a reason to doubt his words. Lauren began texting more often, but the messages were different. Instead of our usual conversations about kids' gossip or planning our next girls' night, she asked questions about Mark. Was he stressed about work? Did he seem happy? Had he mentioned anything about the new CEO? I thought she was being thoughtful, checking in on our family's well-being. She started declining our Tuesday coffee dates, saying she had client meetings or dentist appointments. Over 3 months, we only met 4 times when before we never missed a week. There were other things too. Mark became protective of his phone, taking it with him, even to the bathroom. He said it was work calling at all hours about the launch. He changed his password, explaining that IT required stronger security measures. He started going to the gym at 5 in the morning, claiming he needed to blow off steam before tough days. His gym bag would already be in his car when he left, and he'd come home showered and changed. I made him protein shakes and packed healthy snacks, supporting what I thought was his health journey. The 15th of October started like any other Friday. Mark kissed me goodbye at 6:30, saying he had to catch an early flight to Chicago for a critical client presentation. He'd be back Sunday evening. His overnight bag was already in his Tesla, and he seemed distracted, checking his phone repeatedly while gulping down coffee. Emma asked if Dad could bring back those chocolates from that fancy shop on Michigan Avenue, and he promised he would, ruffling her hair before heading out. An hour later, I got Tyler ready for school and Emma for her early morning orchestra practice. The house fell quiet by 8:15, giving me my usual morning routine of yoga, shower, and checking emails. I had a freelance project due Monday, a press release for a local nonprofit's fundraising gala. But concentration wasn't coming easily. Something felt off, though I couldn't name what. By 10, I decided to be productive in a different way. Mark's home office had become a disaster zone over the past month, with papers piled high and empty coffee cups creating a porcelain graveyard on his desk. He always said he worked better in organized chaos, but this was excessive even for him. With him gone for the weekend, I could surprise him with a clean, organized workspace. I started with the obvious mess, throwing away old receipts, filing tax documents, organizing his business cards into the leather holder I'd bought him last Christmas. The desk had 3 drawers on each side. The top ones held office supplies, nothing unusual. The middle drawers contained client files, contracts, standard business documentation. But the bottom right drawer was locked. Strange, because Mark had never locked anything from me before. We knew each other's passwords, had joint bank accounts, shared everything. My curiosity piqued. The key had to be somewhere nearby because Mark was terrible at remembering where he put things if they weren't in obvious places. I checked under the desk mat, inside the pencil holder, behind picture frames. Finally, I found it taped underneath the center drawer, hidden but accessible. My hands trembled slightly as I unlocked the drawer. Inside were more tax files, some old birthday cards from the kids, and at the very back a small black USB drive. The label on the USB simply said, "Conference Miami, September 2024, in Mark's handwriting. My heart rate picked up. Mark had gone to Miami for a conference in September, a 5-day leadership summit his company sent senior executives to. He'd called every night telling me about boring seminars and endless networking dinners. He even sent photos of himself at the convention center looking tired but professional. I plugged the USB into his desktop computer. A single folder appeared labeled with the same conference name. Inside were 47 photos and 3 videos. My mouse hovered over the first photo. Something in my gut told me to stop to put the USB back and pretend I never found it. But I clicked. The first photo showed Mark and Lauren at a hotel pool. Not just any hotel, but the Four Seasons Miami, recognizable by its distinctive infinity pool overlooking Biscayne Bay. Lauren wore a red bikini I'd never seen before, and Mark had his arm around her waist. They were laughing heads thrown back, tropical drinks in their free hands. The timestamp showed September 14th, 2 in the afternoon. Mark had texted me at exactly 2:15 that day, saying he was heading into an important strategy session. I clicked through more photos, each one making my chest tighter. Mark and Lauren on a beach at sunset. Mark and Lauren sharing a candlelit dinner on a terrace. Mark and Lauren dancing in what looked like a nightclub, her dress barely covering anything his hands where they had no business being. But it was photo 36 that destroyed me. They were kissing. Not a friendly peck, not a drunken mistake, but a deep, passionate kiss, her fingers in his hair, his hand on her lower back pulling her against him. The Miami skyline glittered behind them, a beautiful backdrop to my life's destruction. The videos were worse. 3 minutes and 18 seconds of them in a hotel room, laughing and kissing, calling each other baby and honey. Lauren telling my husband she loved him. Mark saying he wished they could stay in Miami forever, just the two of them. The metadata showed every file was created between September 14th and 18th. While I was home helping Emma with her science fair project and teaching Tyler to ride his bike without training wheels, my husband and best friend were playing house in Miami. I barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting. My whole body shook as I knelt on the cold tile trying to process what I'd seen. 15 years of marriage. 22 years of friendship. Gone. Evaporated. A lie. Everything was a lie. I tried calling Mark. Straight to voicemail. I called Lauren. Her phone rang once before going to voicemail too. They were together. Of course they were together. He wasn't in Chicago. She wasn't visiting her mother in Vermont like she'd mentioned yesterday. They were somewhere laughing at stupid trusting Colleen. For the next 2 hours, I went through our shared Google Calendar, credit card statements, text messages, everything with new eyes. The conference in Miami, Lauren had supposedly been at a spa retreat that same week. Mark's recent gym membership. The gym was 3 blocks from Lauren's apartment. Those client dinners that ran late. Our credit card showed charges at restaurants in Lauren's neighborhood, not downtown where his clients' offices were. The Saturday golf games with his colleague Brad had posted on Facebook about being in California those same weekends. How long had this been going on? The Miami photos were from September, but how many lies came before that? How many times had they laughed at me behind my back? How many times had Lauren hugged me, asked about my marriage, given me advice while sleeping with my husband? How many times had Mark made love to me after being with her? I found more evidence in his email, which I could access from his desktop. Restaurant reservations for 2 under his name at places he'd never taken me. Hotel bookings in our own city, midday reservations at the Marriott downtown. Charges for jewelry that I'd never received lingerie from Victoria's Secret in size small when I wore medium. A weekend trip to Boston charged to his personal credit card, the one he used for business expenses. During the same weekend, Lauren had supposedly attended her college reunion. The next 48 hours tested every ounce of strength I possessed. Mark would return Sunday evening expecting his devoted wife to greet him with a kiss and questions about his fake Chicago trip. Lauren would probably text tomorrow about getting coffee next week, maintaining her facade of friendship. I had 2 choices: confront them immediately or plan something that would ensure they faced real consequences for their betrayal. Saturday morning, I dropped the kids at my mother's house. I told her I was feeling under the weather and needed rest. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong, but she didn't push. Mothers always know. Emma and Tyler were thrilled about an unexpected weekend with Grandma, who spoiled them relentlessly. I promised to pick them up Monday after school, plastering on a smile that felt like broken glass. Back home, I sat in my kitchen staring at the photo of Mark and Lauren kissing. This image had burned itself into my retinas. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. But as the hours passed, my devastation transformed into something else. Rage. Clear, focused rage. They had made a fool of me. They had destroyed our family. They had taken everything I believed in and torn it apart for their selfish pleasure. Mark's promotion to vice president was 2 weeks away. The announcement would happen at the company's annual gala, a black tie event for 500 employees, clients, and business partners. He'd been talking about it for months, preparing his acceptance speech, buying a new tuxedo, planning his trajectory to CEO within 5 years. This promotion meant everything to him. His reputation, his carefully crafted image of a successful executive with a perfect family, was his most prized possession. Lauren was being honored at a charity fundraiser the night before the gala. The Women's Foundation was giving her their Woman of the Year award for her volunteer work with underprivileged teenagers. She'd bought a designer gown, hired a professional makeup artist, and invited everyone she knew. Her social media was full of posts about being humbled and honored. The irony of celebrating a woman who slept with her best friend's husband wasn't lost on me. Sunday afternoon, I made my decision. They valued their reputations above everything else, above our marriage, above our friendship, above our children's stable home. So their reputations would be the price they paid. I wasn't going to skulk away quietly, wasn't going to be the good wife who protected her husband's image while he destroyed her life. They wanted to play with fire. They were about to get burned. I researched print shops online, finding one across town that advertised 24-hour service. A place far enough from our neighborhood that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. I selected the clearest photo, the one of them kissing by the Miami skyline. Using Mark's laptop, I added text at the bottom in elegant script. Trust is earned in years, destroyed in seconds. Simple, devastating, true. Sunday evening arrived too quickly. Mark walked through the door at 7, looking tired but pleased with himself. He kissed my cheek, a gesture that made my skin crawl, and handed me a box of chocolates from Chicago, the same brand Emma had requested. He'd actually gone to Chicago, probably for a few hours, to maintain his cover story. The attention to detail in their deception was almost impressive. Over dinner, he told animated stories about the client presentation, how well it went, how impressed everyone was with his strategic vision. I nodded, smiled, asked appropriate questions. Inside, I was counting down hours. Emma showed him her math test, a perfect score, and he praised her enthusiastically. Tyler demonstrated his new karate moves, and Mark promised to practice with him next weekend. My beautiful, innocent children, unaware their world was about to shatter. That night, Mark tried to initiate intimacy. Said he'd missed me, that hotel beds were never as comfortable as being home with me. I pleaded a headache, turned away from him in bed. He fell asleep within minutes, snoring softly while I lay awake staring at the ceiling, planning every detail of what came next. At 1:45 in the morning, I slipped out of bed, grabbed the USB drive and my purse, and drove to the print shop. The print shop occupied a corner unit in a strip mall, fluorescent lights harsh against the dark night. A young guy, maybe 25, worked behind the counter, looking bored until I walked in. He perked up, probably surprised to have a customer at this hour. I handed him the USB, told him I needed 500 copies of the photo, high-quality color printing. He didn't ask questions, just quoted a price. I paid cash, exact change I'd withdrawn from 3 different ATMs to avoid a suspicious large withdrawal. Watching those copies print was hypnotic. Page after page of Mark and Lauren's betrayal sliding out of the industrial printer in perfect clarity. The photo was damning, undeniable. No explanation could excuse it, no lie could cover it. 500 copies took 90 minutes. I used the time to write Mark's colleagues' names on some envelopes I'd brought, addressing them formally. Mr. Richard Davidson, CEO. Mrs. Patricia Chen, Senior Vice President. Mr. James Mitchell, Head of Human Resources. People whose opinions Mark valued more than his own family's well-being. By 3:30, I was back home, boxes of copies hidden in my car trunk under blankets. Mark hadn't stirred, still sleeping peacefully in our bed, unaware that his carefully constructed life was about to implode. I slipped back beside him, adrenaline making sleep impossible. At 6, I got up as usual, made coffee, prepared breakfast. Mark commented that I looked tired, suggested I go back to bed after he left. I smiled, said I might do that. Monday and Tuesday passed in a blur of normalcy. I picked up the kids from my mother's, helped with homework, made dinners. Mark worked late both nights, probably with Lauren. Wednesday, Lauren texted about coffee Thursday. I agreed, suggesting our usual place at 10. She responded with heart emojis. The audacity of sending me hearts while sleeping with my husband was breathtaking. Thursday morning's coffee was the hardest performance of my life. Lauren looked radiant, glowing in a way I now understood. She talked about her award ceremony, asked if I was coming. Of course I said wouldn't miss it. She squeezed my hand, said she was so grateful for my friendship, that I was the sister she never had. I squeezed back, resisting the urge to throw scalding coffee in her face. She asked about Mark casually while stirring her latte. How was his stress level with the promotion coming up? Was he excited? Nervous? I gave her details. She already knew. Watched her pretend to care about my perspective on my husband's mental state. When she excused herself for the bathroom, I saw her phone light up with a text from M. Just the initial. Not even creative enough to use a fake name. Friday came. The kids had a sleepover at their friends' houses, something I'd arranged weeks ago, not knowing it would provide perfect timing. Mark spent extra time getting ready, trimming his beard, precisely selecting his lucky cufflinks. He kissed me goodbye, said he'd see me at the gala. I was getting ready at home and would meet him there as we'd planned. He seemed nervous but excited. This was his night, his moment of triumph. Lauren called that afternoon, asking if I wanted to share a limo to the events. Her ceremony was at 6, the gala at 8, both at the same hotel. I declined, saying I had errands to run first. She said she understood, that she'd see me there. Her voice was light, happy. In a few hours, that would change dramatically. The Ritz-Carlton downtown Hartford had never looked more elegant. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors. Hundreds of Hartford's business elite mingled in the ballroom, champagne flowing, designer gowns sparkling. I arrived at 7:45 after Lauren's ceremony had ended, but before the gala's official start. Perfect timing. My black designer dress was understated but expensive, Mark's anniversary gift last year. Ironic that he'd bought his wife a dress she'd wear to his public destruction. I carried an oversized Chanel bag, a wedding gift from my late grandmother. Inside were 250 copies of the photo, divided into manageable stacks. The other 250 were in my car, waiting for phase 2. My hands were steady as I walked through the lobby. Years of yoga and meditation were finally paying off, keeping me centered when every instinct screamed to run or cry or scream. The cocktail hour was in full swing. Mark stood near the bar, surrounded by colleagues, his laugh carrying across the room. He looked handsome in his new tuxedo, confident, successful. A man on top of the world. Lauren was nearby, still in her award ceremony gown, a stunning red number that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She was showing off her award to a group of mutual friends, basking in their congratulations. I started with the ladies' room, leaving neat stacks of photos on the marble counter next to the expensive hand lotions. Then the coat check, slipping copies into pockets when the attendant was distracted. The gift table for the charity auction had elaborate gift baskets. I tucked photos between the items, ensuring they'd be discovered when winners claimed their prizes. Moving through the cocktail area, I placed photos strategically, under champagne glasses at empty tables, inside the programs for the evening's events that sat on the registration table, behind framed corporate awards in the display cases lining the hallway. Each placement was deliberate, ensuring maximum discovery throughout the night. The ballroom doors opened at 8:15. Guests began filing in, finding their assigned tables. I had 20 minutes before dinner service started, before Mark's promotion announcement. 20 minutes to finish what I'd started. I walked calmly to the parking garage, retrieved the second box of photos from my car, and headed back inside through the service entrance I'd scouted earlier. The kitchen was chaos, servers rushing with appetizer trays, chefs shouting orders. Nobody noticed a well-dressed woman walking through purposefully. I found the service elevator went to the mezzanine level that overlooked the ballroom. From there, I could access the balcony boxes where VIP guests would watch the evening's presentations. Richard Davidson, the CEO, had a reserved box with his wife and the board members. I placed a manila envelope with his name on his seat, containing 5 copies of the photo and a simple note, "Your Director of Marketing's extracurricular activities." Similar envelopes went to the CFO, the head of human resources, and 3 major clients who had reserved boxes. Back in the ballroom, dinner was being served. I took my seat at table 12, Mark's table, where spouses of executives sat together pretending to enjoy corporate small talk. Mark caught my eye from the head table, smiled and winked. I smiled back, raising my champagne glass slightly. A toast to endings he didn't see coming. Patricia Chen's teenage daughter was sitting next to me, home from Yale for the weekend. She was scrolling through her phone, bored by adult conversation. I leaned over, showed her a photo on my phone, the same one being distributed throughout the hotel. Her eyes widened. Within seconds, she was showing her brother, who showed his girlfriend, who texted it to someone. The digital age made revenge so much more efficient. At 8:45, Richard Davidson stood to begin the evening's program. He spoke about the company's success, its values of integrity and leadership. I watched Mark straighten his tie, prepare for his moment. Lauren was at table 3, perfectly positioned to watch her lover's triumph. Several people at her table were looking at their phones with shocked expressions. One woman glanced between her phone and Lauren repeatedly. Then it started. A ripple through the crowd. Someone at table 5 had found a photo tucked into their program. They showed their neighbor, who gasped audibly. A server clearing appetizer plates noticed a stack on the bar, picked one up, his eyes widening. He showed another server, who looked directly at Mark. The murmur grew louder, spreading like wildfire through dried grass. Richard Davidson was mid-sentence about promoting excellence when his assistant rushed to the stage, phone in hand. She whispered urgently in his ear, showed him her screen. His face went from confused to shocked to furious in 3 seconds. He looked at Mark, then at me, then back at his phone. The microphone picked up his muttered curse before his assistant turned it off. Mark noticed the disturbance started to stand. That's when someone at table 7 held up one of the physical copies, showing it to their entire table. Mark saw it. I watched the exact moment he recognized what it was. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. He looked at me, and I met his gaze steadily, calmly. Recognition dawned. He knew. He knew that I knew everything. Lauren's table erupted in whispers and pointed stares. She grabbed someone's phone, saw the image, and let out a sound between a gasp and a sob. She stood abruptly, her chair falling backward, and rushed toward the exit. But the photos were everywhere now. People were finding them in the bathrooms, in their coat pockets, on their chairs. The entire ballroom was buzzing with scandal. Mark pushed through the crowd, reaching me in seconds. He grabbed my arm, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to show his desperation. His voice was low, frantic begging. "Please, Colleen, we need to talk. Not here. Please, let's go outside." His eyes darted around the room, watching his colleagues, his clients, his professional world, staring at him with disgust, disappointment, and in some cases barely concealed amusement. I stood slowly, smoothing my dress, and followed him to the parking lot. Not out of obedience, but because I wanted to hear what possible explanation he could offer. The cool October air was sharp against my skin. Mark was pacing, running his hands through his perfectly styled hair, destroying in seconds what had taken him 30 minutes to achieve. He looked at me with tears in his eyes, actual tears, and I wondered if they were for our marriage or his ruined reputation. "How could you do this to me?" Those were his first words. Not an apology, not an explanation, but an accusation. How could I destroy him? The irony was so thick, I almost laughed. I stayed silent, letting him ramble. He loved me. he said. Lauren meant nothing. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. The Miami conference had been stressful. Lauren was there for some training. They'd had too much to drink. It just happened. I finally spoke. 47 photos and 3 videos. Aren't a moment, Mark. Hotel receipts, jewelry charges, lunch dates, weekend trips. How many moments of weakness were there? How many times did you come home to me and our children after being with her? How many times did you let her in our home at our table playing godmother to our daughter while sleeping with her father? He dropped to his knees in the parking lot. Actually got on his knees in his $1,000 tuxedo on the dirty asphalt begging. He'd end it immediately. He'd transfer to the West Coast office. We'd go to counseling. He'd do anything. The kids needed their father. I was the love of his life. Lauren was nothing, a distraction, a midlife crisis mistake. Please, baby, please don't do this. We can fix this. Behind him, I saw Richard Davidson exit the hotel with Patricia Chen and James Mitchell from Human Resources. They were looking for Mark, and they found him. On his knees in the parking lot, begging his wife while 500 of Hartford's elite discussed his affair inside. Richard's face was stone. He told Mark not to bother coming to the office Monday. They'd conduct a full investigation, but the moral turpitude clause in his contract was clear. His promotion was revoked effective immediately. Lauren appeared then, mascara streaming down her face in black rivers, her red dress wrinkled from pushing through crowds. She was hysterical, screaming at me. How could I humiliate her like this? Her reputation was ruined. Her award had been rescinded. The foundation wanted nothing to do with her. Her company had already called, placing her on administrative leave pending review. This was my fault. I was vindictive, cruel, psychotic. I looked at both of them, these two people I had loved most in the world, outside my children, and felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no anger. Just emptiness where love used to live. I stepped around Mark, still on his knees, and walked to my car. Lauren grabbed my arm, spinning me around. Please, she said, we need to talk. We're sisters, remember? 22 years of friendship. I removed her hand from my arm and spoke clearly so they both could hear. 15 years, 2 children, and you threw it away for each other. 22 years of friendship, and you betrayed me without a second thought. You want to talk now? After you've been exposed, you had months to talk, to confess, to show a shred of decency. Instead, you smiled in my face, held my hand, played with my children while fucking my husband. There's nothing left to say. I got in my car and drove away, leaving them in that parking lot with their shattered reputations and broken futures. In my rearview mirror, I saw Mark still on his knees. Lauren crouched beside him. 2 pathetic figures under the harsh parking lot lights, finally together in their destruction. They'd gotten what they wanted, each other. Now they could have each other fully without me in the way. The next 7 days became Hartford's most discussed scandal. Someone had recorded video of Mark on his knees in the parking lot and posted it on social media with the caption, "Director at major company begs wife after affair exposed at company gala." It went viral locally. The photo I'd distributed was shared hundreds of times. Local gossip blogs picked up the story. Mark and Lauren became cautionary tales told at wine bars and coffee shops across the city. Mark was terminated by Tuesday. The moral turpitude clause, combined with misuse of company funds for personal travel with Lauren, gave them grounds for immediate dismissal with cause. No severance, no references, no golden parachute. 15 years of climbing the corporate ladder destroyed in 15 minutes. He tried calling me 83 times that week. I blocked his number after the 20th call. Lauren fared no better. Her company conducted their own investigation, discovering she'd been using sick days for her rendezvous with Mark. She was quietly let go with a minimal severance package in exchange for signing a non-disclosure agreement. The Women's Foundation formally revoked her award and issued a statement distancing themselves from her. Her social media, once full of inspirational quotes and charity work photos, went dark after hundreds of negative comments. By Thursday, I had filed for divorce. My lawyer, recommended by Patricia Chen, who'd pulled me aside at the gala to offer support, was exceptional. She specialized in high-asset divorces with infidelity. The evidence I'd gathered, Mark's admitted affair in front of witnesses and his job termination, put me in an advantageous position. I requested the house primary custody, child support, and alimony. Mark was in no position to negotiate. Emma and Tyler were the hardest part. I sat them down Thursday evening explaining in age-appropriate terms that Dad and I were getting divorced. I didn't give details, just said sometimes adults grow apart and can't live together anymore. Emma, wise beyond her 12 years, asked if it was because of Dad and Lauren. She'd noticed things, she said. The way they looked at each other, the way they laughed together. Kids see everything, even when we think we're protecting them. Tyler took it harder. At 10, his world was more black and white. Dad was his hero, the one who taught him to throw a baseball, to ride a bike, to be brave. I held him while he cried, promising that Dad would still be his father, would still love him even if he didn't live with us anymore. The lies we tell children to protect them from adult cruelty. I arranged therapy immediately. Dr. Morrison came highly recommended for helping children through divorce. Twice a week, she helped them process their emotions, their confusion, their anger. Emma was furious that Mark refused to speak to him for 2 weeks. Tyler was torn between loyalty to both parents. Watching my children suffer because of their father's choices was the hardest part of everything. My parents flew in from Florida immediately. My mother took one look at me and wrapped me in the kind of hug only mothers can give. She didn't say "I told you so," though she'd never fully trusted Mark. My father, usually reserved, was furious. He wanted to confront Mark to make him pay in ways that had nothing to do with money or reputation. I convinced him that destroying Mark publicly was revenge enough. Support came from unexpected places. Patricia Chen called personally, offering me a position in her department whenever I was ready to return to work full-time. Other wives from the gala reached out, sharing their own stories of betrayal, forming an informal support group. Even the young man from the print shop sent a message through the shop's Facebook page saying he hoped I was okay and that my order had been the most interesting of his overnight shifts. The house felt different without Mark's presence. Quieter, but not empty. His absence was noticeable in small ways. No coffee brewing at 6, no ESPN in the evening, no snoring at night. I redecorated immediately, removing our wedding photos, packing his remaining belongings in boxes for his lawyer to collect. I painted our bedroom, changed the bedding, bought new furniture, erasing him from the space we'd shared. Lauren attempted contact once, a long email full of apologies and justifications. She was sorry for hurting me, but she and Mark had fallen in love. They couldn't help it. The heart wants what it wants. She hoped someday I could forgive them, that we could all be adults about this, especially for the children's sake. I forwarded it to my lawyer without responding. The audacity of asking for forgiveness while justifying the betrayal was breathtaking. 1 year has passed since that night at the Ritz-Carlton. 1 year since 500 copies of a photograph dismantled 2 lives built on deception. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. I got the house primary custody and enough financial support to maintain our lifestyle while I rebuilt my career. Mark got supervised visitation every other weekend and the obligation to pay for his children's therapy and college education. He lives in a 2-bedroom apartment across town, now working as a consultant for a small firm that doesn't care about his scandal. His reputation in Hartford is permanently damaged. He'll never reach the heights he'd planned, never become CEO of anything significant. Lauren moved to Seattle 3 months after the gala, starting over where nobody knew her story. They didn't last. The relationship built on destroying others couldn't survive its own exposure. Last I heard through mutual acquaintances, they blamed each other for the disaster. Emma is thriving despite everything. She joined the debate team, channeling her anger into articulate arguments about justice and ethics. Her relationship with Mark is slowly healing, though she still refuses to discuss Lauren. She told me once that she's proud of how I handled things, that I showed her women don't have to accept disrespect. That comment made every difficult moment worth it. Tyler struggled more, but is finding his way. Baseball became his outlet, his coach a positive male influence. He still loves his father but understands in his 10-year-old way that people who make bad choices face consequences. He asked me once if I still loved Dad. I told him I loved the memory of who I thought Dad was, but that person might never have existed. He nodded like he understood. My career has resurrected stronger than before. Patricia Chen's offer led to a position as Director of Communications for her division. I'm good at my job better than I remembered. The skills I'd used managing a household translated well to managing corporate communications. My colleagues respect me, not pity me. The scandal is old news replaced by other dramas, other revelations. Dating isn't on my radar yet. Trust once shattered doesn't rebuild easily. I've had offers, kind men who see a successful single mother and think they could heal my wounds. But I'm not wounded anymore. I'm scarred, yes, but scars are just evidence of survival. I'm learning to be alone without being lonely, to find completeness within myself rather than through another person. The therapy helps. Dr. Rodriguez, my therapist, helped me understand that my response to the betrayal, while extreme, was my way of reclaiming power. For months, Mark and Lauren had made decisions about my life without my knowledge or consent. The public revelation was my decision, my choice, my power. It wasn't about revenge. She said it was about truth. Truth demanded to be seen. I've made peace with my choices. Some people, including my former mother-in-law, think I went too far. That I should have handled it privately, preserved everyone's dignity. But whose dignity was I supposed to protect? The husband who violated our vows, the friend who betrayed 22 years of trust. They gave up the right to dignity when they chose deception. My support group has become genuine friendship. We call ourselves the Phoenix Club Women who rose from the ashes of betrayal. We meet monthly, sometimes for wine, sometimes for hiking, always for honesty. We don't wallow in victimhood. We celebrate resilience, share resources, remind each other that betrayal is about the betrayer's character, not our worth. Looking back, there were probably signs earlier than 3 months before discovery. Comments that seemed innocent but weren't. Moments that felt off, but I dismissed. The foundation of my marriage had been cracking for who knows how long. But I was busy being a wife, a mother, a friend. I was maintaining the life we'd built while they were destroying it. That's what betrayed partners do. We hold everything together while others tear it apart. Today I stand stronger, not because I destroyed them, but because I chose myself. I chose truth over comfortable lies, dignity over degradation, consequences over complicity. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is show the world exactly who people really are. The truth needed no embellishment, just 500 copies and the courage to distribute them. Mark and Lauren wrote their own story. I just made sure everyone could read it. The photograph still exists, tucked in my safety deposit box with other important documents. Not as a trophy or reminder of pain, but as evidence that I survived the worst betrayal imaginable and emerged whole. It represents the moment I stopped being a victim and became the author of my own story. A story where betrayal doesn't win, where consequences matter, where a woman's rage can be transformed into powerful action. People sometimes ask if I regret going public, if I wish I'd handled it differently. I tell them I regret many things. I regret trusting blindly. I regret not seeing the signs. I regret that my children had to experience their father's fall from grace. But I don't regret those 500 copies. They were my declaration of independence, my refusal to disappear quietly, my proof that nice women can become warriors when pushed too far. Every morning I wake up in my house, make breakfast for my children, and prepare for a job I earned on merit, not marriage. Every evening I help with homework, listen to their days, tuck them in with promises that tomorrow will be good. And it is. Life is good. Not perfect, not without challenges, but authentically mine. Built on truth, not lies. Strengthened by survival, not betrayal. The best revenge isn't living well, though I'm doing that. It's living authentically, free from the weight of other people's deceptions. Mark wanted his cake and to eat it too. Lauren wanted what wasn't hers to take. They got each other and lost everything else. I lost them and found myself. In the end, I won. What would you do if you discovered your spouse and best friend were betraying you? Would you protect their secrets or expose their truth? Have you ever had to choose between being nice and being free? I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. And if you know someone who needs to hear that they're not alone in their betrayal, please share this story with them. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, your truth is your power, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go of people who don't deserve your love. Stay strong, stay true, and never apologize for refusing to be anyone's fool.